Hey, one more world entertainment, CLAYFACE. That'll be the next DCU movie. Will it work? Won't it work? Can it succeed? It's got the best chance to succeed, being the fact that they, apparently anyway, only spent about 40 million on the budget. We will find out what the budget actually was because it was filmed completely in the UK. But they've held yet another test screening. So this is now 2 test screenings. This new test screening seems to have quite a different version, somewhat, to what we found out in the first version. Now, the first one, which I covered on the channel, said there's absolutely zero mention of Batman. You never see Batman. He's never mentioned anything like that. That doesn't seem to have changed as of yet. But the big question was, does CLAYFACE become CLAYFACE? Does he turn into the full version of CLAYFACE? The first test screening said no. It's only his limbs that change. The new test screening seems to have changed that and said, yes, he does turn fully into CLAYFACE. So it's kind of like, is there actually 2 versions of this? Now, apparently, they've also gone back to start doing some reshoots. So, whether or not they did, like, a version where he doesn't fully become CLAYFACE, and one where he does, and now maybe the one that he does has maybe worked a bit better. They're like, let's go back and do some reshoots so we can do the full transformation. We will look here about it. Now, it says possible spoilers, but it's kind of talking about how the things kind of end. It's also being now confirmed that this is the CLAYFACE that appeared in Creature Commandos. Now, this part would be a massive spoiler, so if you don't want to know, skip ahead or you can tune out or whatever. But in Creature Commandos, which was the very first thing for James Gunn's DCU, CLAYFACE dies in it. They killed CLAYFACE. Now the fact that we're being told this CLAYFACE is that CLAYFACE, and keep in mind, this movie is set for some reason before Superman. Yeah, so this is essentially the start of the DCU. Oh, what a mess they're already causing with this. We're now being told essentially that, yeah, he does become this version of CLAYFACE, but kind of meets his fate somewhat. So we'll dive into this. As I said, there is possible some spoilers. That would be the biggest one, really, I think. But you can see here, so it's saying, while 2009's Joker is widely held as a great movie, whether it's a great comic book adaptation is a different conversation altogether. And that is one of the things, because it wasn't actually written as a Joker movie. They just looked at it and went, we could change that character to being Joker and see if it works. And it did work. So, after all, Arthur Fleck has little to nothing in common with his counterpart on the page. And the fear among fans is that CLAYFACE might be a similar story. Now, it's interesting that they say the fear among fans when you look at, well, Joker worked. So, what exactly would the fear be? Unless they're like, the fear is that this will be Joker folie à deux. Well, so Matt Hagen has already gone from treasure hunter to actor, making him Basil Carlo in all but name. And with an R-rated tone and horror movie backdrop, CLAYFACE doesn't feel like a typical Batman movie. Well, it's not. Yeah, he's a Batman villain, but it's not a Batman movie because there's no Batman. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, of course, and the Dark Knight isn't actually set to appear, but could this end up being a little more than a standalone story of a man who loses his good looks and slowly turns into clay? Now, the other thing as well is, as I said, both test screenings said there's zero Batman. He's not in the movie. You don't see him. He's never mentioned even in the movie. So could some of the reshoots maybe go back and stick at least the bat signal or something in there? I don't know. It would be a bit of a stupid tease at this stage, to be honest with you, especially if this is meant to take place before Superman. Why would you now interject something with Batman when there's no signs of us getting Batman anytime soon with James Gunn? So there's also a rumor about that, which I'll do a previous video on, probably come out in the next day or so. So the teaser trailer teased Clayface's Spike Ball Fist, and James Gunn has said the movie will reveal how Hagen became the shape-shifting creature we previously met in Creature Commandos. So that's where the confirmation is that this Clayface is that Clayface. And as I said, that Clayface dies in Creature Commandos, which is essentially us now knowing that this dude is the Clayface that dies. So the bodies, well, that bodes well, but recent word from test screenings suggests the comic accurate Clayface monster design would not be used in the movie. So that was the original test screening. Fortunately, test screening leaker Cryptic 4K has countered that today by saying, contrary to early reports, Clayface transforms multiple times, including a full transformation later on. Multiple sources rate the film around a 7.5 to 8 out of 10, once again praising its body horror, high emotional stakes, and Tom's acting in the film. Now, in the previous test screenings, I think it's in here, it says the last test screening resulted in positive reactions, with some emphasizing or emphasis placed on the film needing a perfected edit, whilst most reactions focused on praising the gore. So they're saying it's great, but the editing needs to be a bit tighter on it. So the Insider later added that one more tidbit: the design of Clayface is said to look similar to that of his counterpart in Batman the Animated Series, which is this version. So you're seeing, they're saying, well, Clayface does make the full transformation, but the first test screening said that he didn't. So they clearly showed two different versions. Now, people were already asking, what would be the point in them showing another test screening if the first one actually received very positive feedback? Obviously, it's because there's two different versions. There's the version where he doesn't fully transform and a version where he does fully transform. So that seems to be kind of where they're going now. As I said previously with the other story about the first test screening, was that simply for executives? Because we got word from that one, they gave it a 5-minute standing ovation. Normal audiences don't do that. Normal audiences will hoop and holler at the end, but as they're walking out, they're not going to stand there for 5 minutes going, bravo, bravo. Gomez Adams. Remember that? Remember that scene? Yeah, baby. Great Adams Family. But that's where, once I heard that part, I was like, oh, was this just the suits? So maybe this is the same version, just to an actual test audience rather than the executives. And it was just, they didn't let it slip from the first one that he does fully transform. But as you can see, still no mention of Batman or anything, so Batman's not in here. Don't know what's exactly happening with these reshoots. I have a bit of hair or something there. It's annoying me. I can just see it go blah, blah, blah. But whoops. But yeah, it's like, what way are they going to do this? Him transforming fully into this is obviously what you would need to really cement Clayface. But obviously, it would probably end up being another thing where it's not done till the very end of the movie, which makes you go, well, what's the point then? And then, of course, is this character a one and done? You would have to say yes, because if James Gunn has confirmed that this Clayface is the Clayface from Creature Commandos, then we know he dies. So, yeah, it's got to be very interesting because, yeah, you had the likes of John Campea and other people say, like, oh, Superman did so well, which it didn't. That's great news for Supergirl because it'll spike the interest. And of course, it didn't happen. That goes the other way. If Superman underperformed and then Supergirl is absolutely tanking, that doesn't bode well for this. And the fact then that your next hero movie is a villain, it won't feature Batman, it's a Batman villain, it's an R-rated movie, and now it's set before Superman, you're gonna lose a lot of the audience. It's more kind of the body horror people, I think, that will have interest, but even they might get a bit kind of wary about the fact that, oh, this is a comic book movie. Ooh, I don't know about that then. I don't know, but apparently they've now held another test screening, and in that version, he does fully transform into this version of Clayface. So let me know what you think. Do you think he will ultimately transform? Does this get you interested? Were you hyped for this movie already? Do you not care about this movie? Do let me know. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like and share and subscribe and hit that hype button and check out memberships and all that good stuff. Cheers. I'll catch you in the next one.